Welcome back, you two. Oh, and this is for Jane L. Damn, that's good mist. It's like you, brother. It's gotten much too hot here for coffee, tea, anything hot. So, boy, is it good to have something cold. Now I'm just cleaning up the inside of this with a burring tool. Let's give this a wrong one. There's the burring block. Look at that, look at that, look at that. Not quite in. Ouch. That's all it's going to hold it, ladies and gentlemen. A simple press fit. And I don't have it deep enough. God, darn it. Well, more than one way to skin a cat, by cracky. And guess what? There we go. Okay, it's still a little high right here. Don't want to take off too much at a time. I want this thing to fit real snug. I don't want to have to use glue. That went in a little better. And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. One hand hewn bearing block for bow drill. Notice the shape. It's called ergonomics, ladies and gentlemen. I still got to do a little whittling right here on this corner, but 6 shot. And then, of course, I got to bring out some sanding paper, and but you get the idea where I'm going here. Still want that corner down quite a bit. But I know a lot of you parents are saying, Johnny, Jimmy, don't you pay any attention to the way that man's whittling. Now, I've been carving like this for too many years for me to recall. And yes, I still have all 10 digits. So, yes, Jimmy and Johnny at home. Until you can whittle as well as I can, don't try it. I didn't always whittle in that fashion, but I've learned to do it and do it without hurting myself. Believe it or not, it's when I do push cuts like this that I end up nicking myself worse. That's why I generally do pull cuts, because I'm less apt to nick myself because I'm being more careful with it. So you can see where I'm going with this, ladies and gentlemen, and that's going to be a right comfortable bearing block. Yeah. Now all I got to do is, like I said, get after it with some sanding materials. Now, my preferred bearing block, as I've said in the past, was my skateboard wheel bearing block. But at the end of this video, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to include photos that will show you what became of my wheel bearing, skateboard wheel bearing, the skateboard wheel bearing block. I'll get it spit out right. I'm going to show you what became of it and a whole bunch of other gear. I'm still hoping the cops are going to do something about it, but that was June of 2012, and in this state, arson carries a 5-year. Is it 4 or is it 5 year? Maybe it's 3 year. I have to look it up again, but it's a very short statute of limitations. And for some reason, I think I've got it in my head from looking it up in the past that statute ends in June, on June the 20th, because the arsonist burnt my truck on June the 20th of 12. Funny, interesting, hell of a happy anniversary, wasn't it? The wife and I have been married 30 years. Good God. Well, this is Prepper Embarado. Peace out. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube. Now, I shot a video earlier, and unfortunately the first part got corrupted somehow. I don't know how. In the first half of the video, I showed you how I cut a chunk out of the piece of that poplar that was a, what do they call it? A knot from a limb. And I used a Japanese framing saw, and I used my 1/2-inch paddle bit to make the hole in it, and I used my granddad's knife to baton the chunk in half and trim it down before I use the paddle bit. And unfortunately, like I said, that video got corrupted, so I'm going to include this in its place. I've looked for the photos that I mentioned in the second half of the video that we're going to show you how my original bearing block was destroyed. I'm not able to find them yet. I've spent 2.5 hours looking. It's getting late in the evening and I'm getting tired. Oh, pardon me. We're talking about somewhere around 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night right now. Don't know, I haven't seen the clock. So I'm simply going to tell you, and I'll find them. They're probably burned to a disk somewhere. I'll have to find them and I'll upload them later. But what those photos depict is June the 20th, 2012. An arsonist burned my Dodge Ram to the ground. The fire marshal tells me that the fire was somewhere between 3,000 and 3,700 degrees. I was told that they come to this decision of temperature based on the steel box beam frame, the type of metal it's made out of, the type of steel, and its softening point. Let's call it that. I mean, when you put a piece of metal into the forge, you have to get it to a certain temperature to be able to make the metal move. Well, the fire was so hot that it made the metal of the box beam frame move and made that Ram look like an old swayback nag. Literally, the frame bent like this in the middle where the fire was hottest. And that's how they come to the conclusion of between 3,000 and 3,700. Closer to the 3,700, I was told by one of the firemen. In the truck was my original get home bag and bug out bag, and all of my gear was in there, and not fun. I have spent the last 3 years trying to replace the gear that was destroyed. Unfortunately, the arsonist in question hasn't been arrested yet. And I've just figured it out, as I mentioned in the other piece of video. I wasn't positive. Here in New England, this part of New England, what he did is a second-degree Class C felony and carries a 6-year statute of limitations. So I got to sit with my thumb up my you-know-where for another 3 years waiting for the cops to do nothing. Because so far, that's what they've done. They know who did it. I know who did it. And they've done nothing. They claim they're looking for some dude that's got arrest warrants out for him in about 6 different towns in this area, and he's done skipped, and they can't find him. But in the meantime, they are doing nothing about the actual arsonist. And the reason I'm so upset is partly why I'm cash poor. My insurance paid off on the truck $8,800. And then my homeowners paid off on the personal property inside the truck, but only for that which I could document. And a great deal of my gear was bought at tag sales and, stuff I'd just picked up along the way. And then there was stuff I inherited from my grandfather, such as a fly rod and reel worth, the rod's worth $800 and the reel was worth $1,200. And because I can't document that I owned them, the insurance company won't pay for it. I have to go after the SOB in court to get that money. It's like another 20 grand on top of what I was paid by the insurance company that I'm still out. So you can understand why I'm just a little bit hot under the collar with this arsonist. Not to mention, there were 5 other vehicles damaged by this moron. And why did he do it? Well, I can't read his mind, but the certain events that transpired following the arson lead me to believe that the arsonist was doing an unbid favor for another neighbor who was upset with me because I told them they had to abide by the law and be quiet by a certain time of night. The other neighbor lived directly above me, and at 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night, it sounded like they were picking up and dropping bowling balls over my head. And because I asked the constabulary to enforce my requirement that they abide by the law, this other neighbor decided to get even with me on their behalf. And the funny thing is, in the following days and weeks after the arson, the vehicle of the people who lived above me was being used by the wife of the arsonist. These people wouldn't let anybody drive their cars up until that point. Now, you gotta think like I'm thinking. If they wouldn't, for almost a year and a half, they wouldn't let anybody touch their cars. Now all of a sudden they're letting this guy's wife drive it? Why? And that's why I get the impression that's what's going on here. So, now this is not meant to be for sympathy, this is just a statement of facts. So you can understand why sometimes I get a little hot about things and about people. But let me tell you, this guy better pray. He better pray the cops find the evidence or whatever they need to make an arrest before the statute runs out. He better pray he doesn't come before the bench when I'm sitting at the bench. Peace out.